What are the minimum legal considerations you should have for your business? You're a founder, you're an entrepreneur, new, and you're thinking of starting a business. And maybe one of the things that has kept that idea stalling in your head is you're not too sure what to do from a legal perspective. So, this is a very high level view of legal considerations. I was preparing for my course I'm teaching at Folkuniversitetet called She Decides, Give Life to Your Idea. And I was working on this section and realized that I do get this question, and that this is something that people would benefit from generally. So, again, it is very high level, and this is not legal advice. That's my disclaimer. Go get legal advice based on the jurisdiction that you're on. But this gives you the ideas of things you'll be thinking about. So, we're looking at three things: the business vehicle, intellectual property, and data stroke privacy. So, the first one, the business vehicle, what this is looking at is what shape does your business take? It can be a sole proprietorship, meaning that it is just you and you're out there and you're doing it. So, of course, depending on jurisdiction, some of these don't even need to be registered. You can just start it off and start doing what you do, because the identity of the business is not different from yourself. You are the business. Another one is the company. So in a company, that's the main difference, that the company is legally, it's a person. I was reading a book by Yuval, I forget his name, and he was saying how these things are just constructs that we have created as human beings, because some people sat together and said that once you give a company an identity, then it has liability that is separate from you. It was very funny because he was talking about also how money is a construct and how humanity has just created all these things. But he's right. What a company does is that you are going to be a shareholder in your company. Maybe you're more than one person, so maybe you're going to divide, let's say you're two. So you divide your shareholding into 50-50. And the amount of money you're going to put in, let us say that the starting capital of your company is $100. So both of you put $50 in. That becomes the liability at which you are limited on behalf of the company. To say that you are liable if something goes wrong, if the company is sued, then the amount of money that can be asked from you is this $50. Of course, that is not the case in all situations. There could be issues of fraud. There could be issues where you, as a company representative, are taken to task. There's things called lifting the veil. We look at the people who are behind the company for different reasons. But that is the main piece of it, that when you have a registered company, then you're safer in terms of whether or not they're going to come for your TV. All right. Then you have a partnership. So a partnership, all of these depend on jurisdictions, but we're just talking at a high level. A partnership is not as stringent as a company. So a partnership, it's you and your three friends who want to create something, and you do not want to register a company for whatever reason. So what you have is something between the sole proprietorship and the company. Sole proprietorship can only have you one person because it is sole. But then when you have, let's say, three people, what you do is you sit together and write a partnership deed. And this is the document that says how you're going to relate with each other within that company. So it is not as strong as a company. If things go wrong, they can come for your TV. But then between the three of you, it decides who does what and what kind of responsibilities you do have. Companies also have these kind of documents, shareholders agreements and things like that. But the main difference that we're trying to bring out is on liability and the fact that a company is legally a person. That's why a company can be sued in its own name. Yeah. All right. And that means, of course, that your sole proprietorship, even if you give it a business name, if you call it the Stars, the Stars cannot be sued separately from you because you are the legal persona. You are the legal individual that is recognized by courts. A company is a legal individual that is recognized by courts. All right. So the things to consider in your business vehicle are the business name, what is it going to be called? How do you register that? Tax implications, how do you register for tax under each of these vehicles? Bank account, you need to open a bank account for these. In certain jurisdictions, you can open a separate bank account for the sole proprietorship. And I'm not sure that's the case in all jurisdictions. So that's something to check. It might be just your own account that you are also additionally using for your business, but it's good to check that as well. And licenses, it's good to check what kind of license requirements are there in your jurisdiction. It could be that the municipality requires to give you a license. Let's say if you're running a restaurant, there's certain licenses you probably need. It could be that the municipality needs to give you a business permit to allow you to operate a business. So these are things that you need to look at locally. Okay, that was number one. Number two is intellectual property, a big word, IP. IP scares a lot of people. So yes, I'm going to oversimplify it here. But for purposes of just conversation, then you have somewhere to start when you're thinking about your business and what you should and should not worry about. So the first one on this list is copyright. In this video that I have made, this has my copyright. So this is my intellectual property. With copyright, depending again on jurisdictions, and when I say jurisdictions, I mean countries. So different countries have different laws and different rules. I should say that common law is what my thinking is mainly based on. But some of these rules apply across the board. And for copyright, it exists because it has been created by you. It's inherent. That's the word I was looking for. It is inherent in the humanity of having created it. And yes, there's a lot of conversations about whether AI can have copyright because AI is not human. And so that gives you the other side of it, that just on the basis of being a human being, you create something and it has copyright. So copyright infringement is when you take something that you're not allowed to and you use it probably to sell it and stuff like that. So you take this video and you go sell it. That is infringing on my copyright because I haven't given you permission to do that. Yeah. And for creators, that's it. On YouTube, when you're recording a video and putting it on the YouTube platform, there are different copyright considerations that you can choose from. So you then say what can and cannot be done with the video that you're putting together. Can it be used for stitches? Can someone take it without your voice? Things like that, and put an overlay on it. So those are copyright considerations. They apply for things like software, they apply for things like books, music, video, things that have human creativity sewn into them. A patent is something that arises when you have created a new and inventive step. I'll use an example that I quite like. I don't know who the owner of this patent is, but I was quite happy to hear that it exists. You know those things, those plastic things that are at the end of shoelaces? Someone was living their life and realized that they're having trouble tying their shoelaces because the strings keep coming out, and they invented that little thing. Yeah, so that was a new and inventive step. It's something that had not existed before and was useful. It had some utility, and therefore they went to their patent registration office and they filed for a patent application. The registration process looks at a number of things. And then they said that, yes, this thing that you have created, it meets the requirements of registration. And therefore, here you go. This is your patent. It's yours. Having patents is useful because once you have a patent, that means that someone else cannot reuse what it is that you have patented without paying you. Yeah, so that's the beauty of having a patent. So for all you creatives out there who are thinking up beautiful and wonderful and amazing things, consider if these things that you are creating require a patent. Of course, check locally with your lawyers in country. Trademark. A trademark is something that you register to associate a certain thing with yourself. So a logo is something that can be registered as a trademark. And the point is that when you see Coke, you associate it with Coca-Cola, and you associate it with a beverage, and you associate it with that whole, it's an image that comes to your mind. So Coca-Cola company do not want someone else to go out there and create a drink that they're going to call Coke, because that will tie in with the association to their name, and they do not want the public, the general public, to think that this other thing that you've created, which might be of questionable quality, is something that they themselves have made. So that's the thinking behind a trademark. You've created something new, you've created a new framework, so you can register that as a trademark. And you can see that this one is mine. Trade secrets. A trade secret is something that, you do not tell people. I say because then we go back to Coke. I don't know how true this still is, but it was said that they have a secret formula that they use for their drink. And this secret formula they do not tell anybody, so that their drink cannot be recreated. So a trade secret is something that is so worth protecting that it is worth you keeping to yourself. And that is the protection you're having to it. You're just keeping it secret. You're not telling anybody. Because if you go out there and register a patent, then it will be obvious for everyone to see, because patent registration documents are public. So it will be possible for others to come out and see that, this is the secret formula into this drink, and then go and create their own. So a trade secret is something that you could also consider. All right, the things to consider in IP at a high level is the requirements. Each intellectual property classification has its own requirements. There's a threshold that needs to be met for you to say that you can patent something, as an example. So you need to check within your jurisdiction whether those have been met. The next thing is, of course, jurisdiction. Different countries have different things. And registration. So you need to register this. Different countries have different offices for registration. And you need to check something like a trademark doesn't have global applicability. So that you've registered it in your country does not mean that it is automatically registered in the neighboring country. So there are all kinds of agreements that are in place globally between countries and between organizations to look into this. But it's something that's worth having at the back of your mind. The fact that you've registered it doesn't mean that you necessarily own it across the globe. And here I'll actually also add, it doesn't fall into this list and it's not IP, but this is the name of your website. It is important for you, once you get an idea in your head and you've gotten this amazing name that you're going to use it. If we call your company The Stars, it's important for you to go quickly and register the domain name. Why? Because if you start talking about the stars without registering the domain name, someone might go out and register the domain, and then you'll have to pay them to get that domain back. That is an actual business that people run. They keep an ear out to see what's happening and what people are interested in registering, and then they try to beat you in the chase so that then you have to pay them. And you can register different domain ends, .com, .co, .country abbreviation, yeah, and just keep them. Registering a domain name is not terribly pricey, so it's something that you can consider doing well in advance. All right, now let us have a look at data. You, as the founder, the company owner, generally at the back of your mind, we should all be a little cautious about our data and where it is and what we give out. We need to have a heightened view for our own security, just to make sure that there is not unnecessary information out there about us. It happens that we'll go somewhere and we'll get a QR code to scan, and sometimes we might do that without really thinking. But some of these things can be scary in terms of what those other people want to do with it. And there are instances of phishing. Phishing is where someone sends you an email so that you can click something. I lived a lot of this with WordPress. My website is on WordPress. And for whatever reason, almost every other day, there is someone who tries to send an email saying that your your payment did not go through, or that something or other. There's something that they try to send, and then they give a link for you to click. And of course, if you do click that link, there is potential trouble. So what WordPress have done is, yes, they've provided an option of marking things as phishing for them to then try and go against these people and try to block them in some way. But it's important for you to be vigilant on your own. The way to do that is to check who the email is from. All these emails come from very strange addresses and never from WordPress themselves. This is no advertising for WordPress, but anyway. Clients. So your client data. You need to think about what information are you collecting? One, and how are you collecting it? How do you ask them for their email address, and how do they send you that email address? And then what do you do with it? What do you do with it? I'll highlight here what we mean by personal identifiable information. Once you have some set of data that you can use to identify a person, this could be a combination of their name and email address, a combination of their workplace and name, their birthday, so these kind of details that you can use to identify a person specifically, then that is a kind of information that is sensitive under the GDPR. And although the GDPR is not applicable in all jurisdictions, there is a lot of global movement of data and information. So depending on where you are, having a GDPR-like standard of understanding what you're doing with your information is a good standard to have, in my opinion, because then you're meeting some kind of criteria. You're not just saying it doesn't matter, and yet you might be partnering with websites or AI providers or other players who are based in Europe or who are based in systems and countries that apply something that is comparable to the GDPR. So something to have in mind. So we talked about the information you're collecting, how you're collecting it, what you use it for, and how long you keep it. So even if you're a coach and you're taking handwritten notes based on what your clients are telling you, and this information can identify who this person is, you don't keep it for the rest of your life. Meaning that even if it is not digitized, you still need to get rid of it at some point. Yeah, it's you never know whose hands it's going to land into at some point. You might be moving and then you lose a carton box and there's that person's information somewhere on the street. So something to think about. And who do you share it with? This data, I'm trying to figure out how to sit with the sun. This data that you've collected, who do you share it with? And why do you share it with them? And has the person whose data you've collected consented to that sharing? It sounds complicated, but let me give you a scenario. So in my business, let's say you come in and you're my client. There'll be some information that I shall seek from you. And generally speaking, one of the things I do is, let's say it's a Zoom call. That's a good example. So it's a Zoom call. I will ask for your permission for the call to be transcribed. Why? Because Zoom is a third party. So they're transcribing it, but I don't want to just be taking these notes without your knowing. That is not nice. I feel when I'm in a call and then it just shows a note that this meeting is being transcribed, I feel cheated. I feel like you're trying to take a piece of my soul. So just tell the people that this is something that you're doing. And once I have that transcription, sometimes depending on the kind of meeting that we're having, I might use other AI tools to extract certain data from it. So again, I let the client know that I'm going to go into Anthropic and do this, that, and the other. Are you okay with it? Why? Sometimes they have questions, sometimes they don't. And what I've done is I've incorporated this into my privacy policy that is on my website, such that I am having the conversations with them. They're aware of what I am doing. And again, I don't keep it forever. I limit the time frame that I keep it. And I'll give you an example of something that happened. I went on a tour. I was on vacation somewhere, and I went to this place where I took a photo. You know those kind of photo booth machines that you take a photo and then it sends you a picture with the logo of the place or something like that. And then I was very happy at the time to just provide my email address, and I didn't think much about it. But then, like 3 weeks ago, they sent me an email saying that there had been a compromise of their data systems and that information had been shared that might include my information. And that made me sit and pause. I don't even know where that picture is. I don't think I did anything with it. So now, next time I travel, I'll think twice before providing the data in that way. This is a very respectable place, which is why, indeed, they actually gave me this information. It was within Europe, and the GDPR does require them to tell everybody, no matter how minute, in case of an information leak. So I appreciated that. Then I had to sit back and ask myself, how long ago was I there? Because if indeed it's a place I had been to 10 years ago, I would actually have raised a case with them and asked them why they had my information after 10 years. So this is to illustrate that these things, especially when you're starting, you might not really think too much about them, and you might not think that it's something you really need to take into account. But have it at the back of your mind. When your business starts growing and you have X number of clients, you want to have a system in place that makes sure that you're not exposing yourself unnecessarily to potential grief. So this was short and sweet. The documents that you should consider having in your business include foundational documents if you have partners. So if you're not alone, then you have a shareholders agreement, the agreement that determines what the different players are doing. In fact, this gives me another story. I attended Fearless by Feminvest, which was a quite lovely occasion. It was a beautiful setting. And there was a talk. And one of the panelists gave the story of how she had been in business happily by herself for like 13 years. And somewhere along the way, she decided, on the 13th year, she decided to bring in a partner. And the partner came in, and within 1 or 2 years, I think within the first year of that partnership, things were so bad. And I pause here to say, when I use partner here, I'm using it on a very high level. So not the business vehicle that we talked about, just the partner in terms of that there was a second person. So I should perhaps call them a business mate. There's someone else who they came to run the business together with. And within the first year, she realized that their values were askew, things were not working out. And then she decided that no, it needs to go back. The guy needs to go, and she needs to carry on with her business. And she had to fight tooth and nail to keep 75% of this business that she had built by herself from the ground up. Yeah? And it gets worse. After that, she realized that she got a call from suppliers who were saying that they're not going to supply. Why? Because they haven't been paid. So it turns out that things had gone wrong with the monies as well. And she had to file for bankruptcy. Can you imagine? I believe she had to file for bankruptcy, if I remember the story right. And it took her some time to get back on her feet. And in the end, she actually had to let go of that business vehicle and incorporate another one, and then restart her business. So all of this to say that it is super important to have an agreement in place with the people that you're running your business with, especially if they are your family, your spouse, your friends, people you've known for years. Why? Because you'll take things for granted and then start resenting each other. If there's one person who is shouldering too great of a load from their own perspective, it could be that they really feel that they are carrying too much and that the other people are not doing anything. It's useful to have this laid out. And what you're laying out are responsibilities. Who does what? Where does the money go? How are you paying each other? And that kind of thing. Such that if you're doing 75% of the work and getting 75% of the money, it is less painful. Yeah, then the next one I had here was the privacy policy, something you need to have in mind. And importantly, the terms and conditions. On contracts, it's not always clear to all entrepreneurs whether or not they need one. And the short answer is yes. A contract is something that protects you as a business owner in terms of what you are doing, what your intentions are, and how you have structured your business and how things work. So a way of looking at it is that even in the smallest of things that you do, there generally is a contract. I mean, you have a contract with Facebook. Even the contracts that you don't remember ever having seen, probably with your internet service provider, there is a contract somewhere. Why? Because there are terms under which you're receiving what you're receiving. Granted, you won't always read them. I don't always read them. Sometimes it makes no sense because it's with an organization that's so big. I cannot say that I do not want this comma here, I want it there. No, their terms are standard, take it or leave it. In your case, let's say you have, I always go back to the idea of a bakery. I don't know why. But in a bakery, you can have certain conditions that you've set up in your bakery. Something that says about returns. Can they return a cake after they've bitten into it? And this might seem obvious until someone comes back with a cake they've bitten into and says that they don't like how it tastes. In such a situation, to avoid argument, it is safer to be able to point at something and say, terms and conditions apply. The easier way I find is to have it set out on your website. And in that case, you're saying what you're doing. I had a small list here. Yeah, what are you selling? What do you deliver? How do you deliver it? How does it reach them? What happens if they don't like it? Like in the example of the cake. How much is it? Where is the price? And what if they don't pay? What happens? So the bakery is a simple example because someone is walking in. But let's say you're a software developer, you're creating bespoke software. Someone called you up on the phone and they said, come, please make me software. You made the software and then you delivered it. And yes, you had agreed on a price, but then now no one is paying you. So there are actually things that you can implement along the way. I was having a conversation with a client of mine recently about splitting payment so that the full payment amount is not coming at the end when all the work is done, but having tranches of payment that go along the way. And these are terms because then you are forethinking what it is that is going into your business and writing it down and making it available. So there is no conflict. And the thing maybe people will think is that, no, but I won't go to court. But you never know, you might go to court depending on the situation. Like in that case of software, that is your intellectual property that's just gone. Then how do you get it back? How do you convince a court that actually I made it and these are the terms that we agreed on? Yeah. So initially think about it yourself from a very broad level. What are the things that you want to have in place? And it is best in your jurisdiction, get someone to do it for you, to get a contract. I know that a lot of people use AI. I want to say it's better than nothing, but sometimes I'm not sure. Because it depends. It picks information from wherever. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is actually have an idea yourself of what it is that you want to do and what you want to create. And perhaps if you feed that into the AI system, you're better off than just pulling something generic from wherever. So terms and conditions are things that are important to have. I am providing this information because it's something you need to think about at some point. It's better to be thinking about these things at the beginning when your business is still manageable than when you're out there running in the millions and you haven't thought about what to do if someone bites into a cake and returns it to you. I hope that this was helpful for you. I would highly appreciate your comments. I'd want to hear from you in terms of what considerations you've been having in your business. See you next time.